Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this episode of the Transfer Portal Podcast. I am your host today, Andrew. We are joined today by Doug, Brian, and first time to the podcast, we have Emily, who is our Ole Miss fan of the group. Emily, how you doing today? And welcome to your first episode of the podcast.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited I can finally be on the podcast this week.
All right, then we got the two Georgia fans. We got Brian. Let's start with you. Brian, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I am riding the Stetson Bennett coattails right now. He is the greatest quarterback of all time, and I am excited. That's how I'm doing today.
All right, and Doug, let's go over to you, man. How you doing today?
Feeling mixed bag today. I have to eat crow for what I said last week about a certain program. And at the same time, I like to boast about some things I said about other programs too. So mixed feelings.
All right, good stuff. So guys, let's go ahead and let's just go right into it. Big news coming out of the college football world today. I think it's kind of essentially been a long time coming. Clay Helton officially fired from USC. Let's go ahead and just be honest. We're not surprised. I mean, I think this was USC's biggest line over Stanford since they were favored by 41 over Stanford back in 2007 when they got beaten. They were favored by 17 going into this game against Stanford, and they lost again. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just let anybody, whoever wants to talk first, you go ahead, take the bull by the horn. Sounds stupid, but I think that's right. Go ahead and just say what you want. First overall reaction to Clay Helton losing his job at USC.
So for me, I expected him to lose his job. Not this year, because I picked USC to win the Pac-12 like an idiot. But I expected him to do what he always does. I expected him to do what Gus Malzahn always did. I expected him to do what all these coaches always end up doing. They have a bad loss early and they end up backpedaling at the end of the season into winning something big, whether it's the conference or a big bowl game or a big rivalry game, and end up getting an extension or getting some sort of alleviation from the hot seat. Stanford is not good. USC had to make the move. The move was a long time coming. Their season last year, if they didn't lose to Oregon, probably would have netted an extension. But they did the right thing. The only thing I will say is that the head coaching market this year is not looking great. I don't think Luke Fickell moves. I don't think Matt Campbell moves to USC. And if they don't get Bob Stoops out of retirement, their best shot might be James Franklin. But even then, Penn State has looked pretty good so far. And if Penn State does make a New Year Six, I can't see Franklin moving out west. So it's not looking good. USC might have a dip in the offensive coordinator rank in the NFL or get Urban Meyer to take a heart attack by week 3. And if he does that, then it's Urban. But other than that, it's looking kind of bleak for that program.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with what Doug said. It's kind of unfortunate too, because Helton, he brought stability to the program. After there was a tumultuous football culture there for a while, and he comes in and kind of stabilized that program for a little bit. They won the Rose Bowl with Sam Darnold, and that incredible game. So they were everything was looking great for a while. They were on the upswing. They were going up. They had some momentum going, and then all of a sudden it just didn't work. After Sam Darnold left, they just couldn't figure out they couldn't figure out. They had JT Daniels, and that didn't work out. And we see what he's done at Georgia. That it kind of shows the program how he was able to have success at Georgia, but he wasn't very successful at USC. They're 19-14 since 2017, and it just didn't work. So sometimes it just doesn't work, and we've seen it a lot in the NFL. We've seen it a lot in college where they have success, they have a good season, and then it just doesn't work. So it's unfortunate. I do think that USC is they're a blue blood program. They have a lot of history. It's Southern California. I don't think they're going to have a hard time finding a head coach, maybe a big name head coach. one name that I think a lot about, that I've been thinking about all day, is Lincoln Riley. I don't know if he will ever leave Oklahoma, but you throw him a bag, you give him Southern California, you give him the sunshine, you give him, the history of that program. You might be able to pry him out of the hands of Oklahoma. If Oklahoma's about to go through a huge shift into the SEC, does Lincoln Riley want to go through that change, or you know what, he's just going to pack up and go to USC and try to build that program on his own? That's a name that kind of think about. But we'll definitely have to see what goes on. But it's unfortunate. I really like to see what he was after that 2016 season. I really thought that USC was it was going to go back to prominence like the Pete Carroll days. It obviously didn't happen. But they have to wash their hands with it and start over and see what happens.
I mean, I think it's not surprising to everybody that he did get fired. Although, in my opinion, I do think it was very early on because it only is week 2 going into week 3. But I don't think anybody was surprised by it.
Let's just tell the truth on USC. I think USC is one of those teams that you have to just start putting the same dialogue when it comes to your Texases, your Michigans, to an extent your Miamis and your Tennessees in terms. Shut up.
No, I can't, because Tennessee hasn't been good basically in 20 years.
But they get that hype that the media wants them to be good. That's the aspect. You want.
But USC's been good enough. There you go. But thing is, USC isn't a Texas. They aren't. USC has won their conference recently. USC has made bad. At least,
but everybody wants USC to win the Pac-12 again, and they did win it fairly recently, but they want them to be a playoff team. They want them to go back to the Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush days, and it's just one of those dialogues you just have to essentially die down because it's never going to happen again.
I do agree with that, but I'm not going to group them with Tennessee, where there's practically no hope, in Nebraska, where they have no hope.
Well, do you really see any hope with USC now over the next 5 to 10 years? Are they going to be at the same level as Oregon? No, they're not.
They're not completely lost. And with the Pac-12, we've seen it. When Chris Peterson was running the Pac-12 with Washington, they've had some down years too. It's not necessarily, there's no dominant team enough in the Pac-12 to where they're going to be out. They can fluke their way into a pretty good season. I wouldn't say undefeated, because they have Notre Dame, and Notre Dame under Kelly's usually pretty good, but they can fluke their way basically to an 11-1 season, depending on how it goes.
I view it more as a 9-3.
I mean, that,
because that's typically good. That's typically good enough to get you through the Pac-12 South, and that's a division that technically has its ups and downs, and it just hasn't been a dominant division. And who was the last dominant team to come out of the Pac-12 South?
It hasn't existed since the conference came out.
Exactly. So just winning the division really ain't enough. I mean, I remember back when UCLA could win it, it was seen as, well, they could win it this year, but for UCLA, they essentially won it as their Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at with the Pac-12 South is that, let's be honest with the Pac-12. Let's just go ahead and just tell it the way it is. And I know that if Dylan was here, he would agree with me. A Pac-12 team loses once, and they would essentially need a picture-perfect season to even have a chance in the playoff. That's just the way it is. And, is it because we don't view the Pac-12 as top-heavy as it used to be maybe back in the early 2010s? Probably. But my main point with USC is the media has a relationship with USC. And you know what? It is that Los Angeles, lifestyle. It is the whole history with the Bush and the Leinart and the Carroll days that people want to see USC be successful again. And when USC did win that Rose Bowl in 2016, people thought that they were going to go back to being the USC that we've always known them to be. And unfortunately, it's just not the case. They have not won a bowl game since that Rose Bowl. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just self-glorify my team here. But my biggest memory of Clay Helton is him losing that Holiday Bowl to Wisconsin in 2015. I mean, that's truthfully my biggest takeaway from his season, from his time there. Now, to what you were saying in terms of where they go from here, in terms of a coach, it's not pretty. It's really not pretty. I mean, who are you going to go? Jim Leonard out of Wisconsin? Probably not. I don't think he wants to leave. I think he's holding on until Chris retires. You know, I just do not know where USC is going to go from here. And I'm not saying that it's as hopeless as maybe some other teams that we're going to go into. But I just do not see why a recruit would pick USC over your typical blue bloods like Alabama and Ohio State, Oklahoma. I mean, even Texas A&M has been killing the recruiting field. Why would a recruit rather go to USC as a football program than over Texas A&M?
Because you know why? Because it's they're still 18-year-olds. You pitch
You
an
throw
18-year-old
California
about
and then you throw the NIL deals.
they can
Bingo.
exactly. So I think USC they'll still be they're always able to recruit well. They're always able to bring in players, even transfer players. They're able to do that. We saw what Blue McCoy did. He went to USC, then he went to Texas, and then went back to USC. So they'll be able to recruit well. I don't have an issue with that. I don't think that'll be a problem for them. Will they find the coach to be able to rebuild that program? That's the question. And I don't think it'll be that hard for them to find one because of it. It is USC. It's not Tennessee. It's not in the middle of Tennessee. It's not Nebraska. It's not Wisconsin. It's not the middle of Florida. It's Southern California. It's Los Angeles. That is the prime market for anybody. Anybody would you rather take a job in Lincoln, Nebraska, or in Los Angeles, California? Well, you're going to go to LA. There's no question about that. So I think it's going to take them time. I don't think it'll be next year or 2 years from now, or like Andrew said, 5 years. But I don't think it's as the nail is not in the coffin just yet. I think that they will come out of this at the other side clean. And the worst thing, I guess, the thing about having such a dominant period of time, like they did in the 2000s with Pete Carroll, with Matt Leinart, with Reggie Bush, you expect them to do that again. You expect that as a fan, naturally, you want them to be that again. When Alabama gets through this period that they're in right now, whenever that may be, Nick Saban has to die before that happens. But when that happens, you're going to see that with Alabama. You will not get to that point again. That is a once in a lifetime run that you go on. You're probably not going to do that for a very long time. And as a fan, and as a program, and as a fan base, you have to realize that. Patriots fans need to realize that. San Antonio Spurs fans need to realize that. That is not how you're not going to do that again. And I think getting to a point where you're successful, where you win games, where you make New Year's Six bowls, where you win your division, maybe you win the conference a couple times in a 5-year period. That's okay. You can get to there and be decent and just build that program, and then maybe eventually you cannot get into a playoff. Maybe they expand the playoff, you sneak into the 12-team playoff, you win a couple of games in there, and you find yourself in a championship game, and you never know. But I don't think all hope is lost in USC. It's definitely going to be a tough couple of years. It might take them a couple of years. They might dip in their recruiting rankings for a couple of years, but they'll bounce back. And I say maybe about 5 to 10 years, not even 10 years, maybe 5 to 7 years, they'll be in the conversation again. But Andrew's right. The Pac-12 is not the SEC. You lose once, you're done.
Absolutely.
And that's what's wrong. That's the problem with that. And that'll obviously change with the Big 12 not being the Big 12 in a couple of years. Whenever Texas and Oklahoma leave, the Pac-12 might kind of take that step into the Big 12 where they're like that second level down from the SEC and the ACC. But other than that, they'll be okay. At the end of the day, they'll be okay.
Like the new Big 12 most likely will be like Pac-12 level. They'll probably take a one-loss like at-large team over a Big 12 or Pac-12 champ. But one last note on USC, name that just popped in my head while we were just talking, and a name I do think that will set them back if they do try to go after him as head coach. If Cliff Kingsbury gets fired at Arizona this year and USC offers him, because they were looking at, he was their offensive coordinator, but if you have NFL experience, unless you're going to Nick Saban school of coaches that can't coach good, unless you go to a Nick Saban rehabilitation center, you can probably get a head coaching gig in college after a head coaching gig in NFL. So Cliff, if he goes to USC, I don't think he'll do well. I mean, I'm just throwing that name out there because he has ties with them in the past, but that was also a different administration. And then USC, it's not looking pretty. You might have to go off the beaten path to find a coach.
So does this essentially guarantee that Clay Helton is going to be the next offensive analyst for Alabama?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
He's either gonna be in Tuscaloosa next week or in Foxborough.
So another thing that I want to add real quick. So apparently Urban Meyer has, I know we're a college football podcast, but apparently Urban Meyer is losing heat in Jacksonville already. I give it until Thanksgiving until we start hearing about high blood pressure again. So what are the chances that maybe he takes the USC job?
If it's open and he wants to leave, it's his.
Because I feel like USC is just one of those programs where like he would just go there at this point. He's already been at Florida, he's been at Ohio State. Why not take another big name coaching job? And it just seems like USC is just there. I mean, he's coached in that region with Utah before, so it kind of does make sense to an extent.
So think about it. He worked on the show with Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart for what, 2-3 years, and they've been hard selling him on USC most likely because they knew Clay Helton wasn't the guy for that long, because that show, Big Noon Kickoff, came after the USC Providence under Helton. So they knew that Clay was going to be out of there sooner or later. So with those being the two big USC guys that everybody recognizes, hard selling them, like, if Urban wants it, it's his. Like, they're not going to turn it. Like, the only time it might be tricky is if Bob Stoops comes in, but even then, it's going to be Urban. Like, Bob looks happily retired. So,
all right, cool. So we're just going to spend just a quick couple minutes on this. I didn't put in the outline, but we might as well just touch up on it because I don't believe it was brought up in the last podcast. Big 12 does add 4 teams. They had UCF, they had Houston, they had Cincinnati, and they had BYU. Personally, from a UH perspective, I am stoked about this move. I don't think it essentially puts the Big 12 back to where they want to be. I don't think they're even close to that. As much as I love my Cougs, as much as I love what BYU and Cincinnati and UCF have done over the last couple of years, they just do not bring it back in terms of program prestige, in terms of TV deals, in terms of, well, let's just be honest. I mean, Texas Longhorns had their own TV network. But I do think it does give the Big 12 a bit of reinforcement, maybe is the correct word. Maybe, it does give them back some credibility that you were able to bring in 4 programs that have, let's be honest, to a lot of people's eyes, have succeeded over, is that the right word? Yeah, we'll just say succeeded over the last decade or so. Obviously with UCF going, undefeated in 2017, UH winning the Peach Bowl against Florida State in 2015. BYU, it seems like they always have an exciting offense to watch. Cincinnati over these last 2 years. I just want to get everybody's quick thoughts. I'll get to Brian first on this since, he is, one of my Texas people. I actually do like it, but I think it's kind of what Doug was saying. It's good for the Big 12, but let's just be honest. If you're a 1-loss conference champion, you're not going to the playoff. But I think it's good in terms of geography and in terms of recruiting. Now you give recruits in those areas a chance to play those Power 5 conference games. So yeah, Brian, I'll go over to you. Just your initial reaction to this news.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Big 12 is concerned, I mean, let's be honest. You're replacing Texas and Oklahoma with Cincinnati and UCF. It's not the sexiest move, but you're doing good by those programs. They've earned those spots. I think they're probably 4 of the. I don't know about BYU. I think BYU is the only school where I'm kind of iffy on that. I think with they just.
Nobody wants to play Power 5 football in Utah, okay? And Mormons, not in a state, guys. Okay, I've never been to Utah, but I've met enough Mormons in my life. Okay, these people, man, they do not believe in drinking caffeine. They do not believe in drinking sodas, but they have no problems marrying multiple wives as young as 14 years old, guys. I mean, what the hell? I mean, we're bringing that into our Power 5 landscape. I mean, this is just the G. Can we kick? Is it
fans? We apologize for this.
No, I do not apologize. I do no. Okay, look, I had a conversation with this the other day. I do not have any love towards. Okay, maybe I should stop there. Yeah, you said it, not me. But Remember the BYU Arizona game in Vegas? There were more people in line for sodas than there were for beer.
Yeah, the Arizona fans left by then because they were getting whooped.
Tragic. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Andrew, yeah, you make a good point. BYU, they're not. You can definitely make a case for Cincinnati. They've had a great couple of years. UCF, they have had history. They had that undefeated season. They beat Auburn, all that. So there's history there. So I like the move. I think that's going to definitely up their programs a lot. I think that's going to bring more kind of it's going to bring a little bit more of a different look to the playoff landscape, have different teams in the conversation. It's kind of reminds me of what happened at what TCU was able to do, making their way through the ranks and then joining the Big 12 and being maybe a controversial vote away from making the playoff back in 2014. So, I mean, I like to see what happens. Who knows? Maybe Cincinnati continues their run and they end up winning the Big 12 in the next couple of years and they end up making a playoff spot. Who wouldn't want to see Cincinnati in the playoff? I think that'll be very interesting to see at that point. But yeah, but as the Big 12 standpoint, it definitely dilutes the Big 12. They're not going to be anything special anymore. You're not going to see the Big 12 be talked about in the same conversation as the SEC and the ACC, maybe even the Big 10. It's just not going to happen. But there's still going to be fringe Power 5, in my opinion. I think I tweeted it out and Andrew responded to it. I was like, are they still considered a Power 5 conference? And you can, and Andrew said, yeah, you can. It's very fringe Power 5. There isn't very much margin for error for any team in the Big 12 at this point moving forward. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So I'm interested to see. I like the move. I think a lot more programs should be able to have that opportunity to do that. And I think maybe you can see those like the Sun Belt Conference or the American Conference bring up some other teams up from maybe like a UTSA or an FAU or Southern Miss or something like that into the American, kind of give them a little bit more exposure. I think I'd like to see that as well for sure.
I mean, I think it's a good first step. I was in Cincinnati last weekend when they had just decided that they were going to be entered into it, and everybody was so excited. I mean, I think they've earned it, at least earned their spot to be up there for now. I think they'll have continued success. They're 2-0 right now. I'm hoping they'll continue it. I'm not the biggest Cincinnati fan, but I think it's a step in the right direction for them and for the other people who just got in. So.
Yeah. So for me, I'd say that in general, these are solid moves. Like I said, there's no chance that they would replace the magnitude that they would lose with Texas and Oklahoma, but they're trying to make up with, I wouldn't say quality because Texas has been kind of poop lately, but make up in terms of names with quantity. Like they've picked up quantity with teams that are actually good. You have UCF, like Brian said, the bowl win over Auburn, undefeated 2 years in a row. Generally pretty great program. You have BYU, storied program, national fan base. The only issues that would arise with that is the fact that they don't play on Sundays, which won't affect college football, but it would affect college basketball and other sports. You'll find out more on the transfer portal and No Context College Basketball podcast whenever we do drop that. Yeah, so you have the BYU and then Houston. It's always good to get a replacement Texas school there. The same thing that happened when Texas A&M left. They got TCU, Houston for UT, and Cincinnati is just a quality program. And it's crazy seeing all these programs that were once in the Conference USA come up all the way to the Power 5. That said, I do see the Big 12 end up going the way of the Big East when Miami, Virginia Tech, and Boston College left, where it's not necessarily a bad conference. They're just a conference in limbo because they don't have the names. They just have the quantity. And the Big East during that time wasn't bad. It was a free for all. Like you might have teams in the next few years in the Big 12 step up, or you might have old powers like Kansas State actually show up and reclaim their throne. The one thing I am curious more so about is the realignment after the fact. I do know the Americans going to pick up a few teams because they're still in pretty strong standing, regardless with SMU basically leading the pack there. And then the Sun Belt, which is probably the top to bottom, probably the strongest G5 conference, they actually stay in a position to pick up a few teams this time. And they may not even have to go down to the FCS level to pick them up. They can actually just pick up from Conference USA this time. Yeah, like Sunbelt's in a pretty good position. Like I actually do like what's happening for them. Conference USA is going to get poached. I'm sorry, but like if your games are on Facebook Watch, your program conference is not in good standing. So hopefully UAB moves to a better conference. FAU might move to a better conference, but like, yeah, that conference is struggling. Pray for them. Pray for them. So
AAC and UTSA. That's all I'll say. And I know Brian agrees with me 100% on that. All right, so let's go on to the next part because I think we spent a little time on that. AP Top 25 just came out yesterday. We're recording this on a Monday night. They came out yesterday around 2:00 Central, I believe so. Let's go ahead. Let's just talk about just some reactions that we just saw whenever we saw this, whenever we saw it come out. Let's start with Emily. What kind of shocked you? What grabbed your attention? That sort of thing.
Well, first off, I was very excited that Ole Miss moved up in the AP poll to 17, but I was very shocked that Arkansas, previously unranked and now they're 20, which I was very happy for them after their win against Texas this week. I was very excited about that, but I was also more excited about Oregon. Oregon getting so high up there in the top 4 now, and it brought down Ohio State to 9. So I was really pleased with that one too.
Yeah, I think that I agree with Emily. Seeing Arkansas on the ranked is so fun. Arkansas, beautiful. I've kind of like adopted them as my second team. And I love watching them win, except when they play Georgia. And unfortunately, we play them this year, and we're gonna have to beat them up pretty good. But I love Sam Pittman. I've loved him at Georgia. He's such an energetic guy. He's such an awesome person, and I just love seeing him succeed. I don't know if y'all saw that tweet of the Arkansas AD. He was mic'd up at the end, and he basically just embraced it all and let the fans they let the fans storm the field and tear down the goalposts, and he was in tears and he was excited, and that was just so fun to watch. And that's what college football is all about, man. And seeing them getting rewarded with a ranking this week. I know it's only 20, but Arkansas has been in a bad place for a long time, and seeing them be in that position is amazing. I also like Emily said, Oregon in the top 5. They kind of Oregon has a long history of being competitive, and they've had some ups and they've had some downs, but seeing them at that big win against Ohio State, and I hope we continue to blame Doug for his take, but it was great to see. Definitely. So I like that. And then seeing Notre Dame drop 4 spots, I think that's a little harsh. I think it is a little bit. I know it's Toledo. I know they struggle against Toledo, but we saw Oklahoma struggle against Tulane, and they're ranked number 3. We've seen other Texas A&M struggle and against Colorado, and they're still in the top 10. So I think it's a little harsh to drop them 4 spots, but we'll definitely see. And Penn State continues to get a lot of love. I don't really like Penn State that much. I really think they're really overrated, and I don't really like them that much, but they continue to move up the rankings. So we'll see what happens with them. And Emily, I love Ole Miss. I said Arkansas is my second favorite team, but I'm paying so much close attention to Ole Miss this year. I love what Ole Miss is doing. I love Matt Corral. I really hope that they beat Alabama this year. It's going to be so much. I can't wait for that game in a couple of weeks. And I really hope they continue to go up the rankings. I would love a Georgia Ole Miss SEC championship game. I would love to see that. It would be amazing.
No, that'd be great. So this weekend we play Tulane, and then next weekend we play Arkansas. So I'm going to both of those, and I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I'm pumped. And then we have Alabama the next week after our bye.
I mean, it's off a bye, so.
Yeah, so we have a week. Very thankful. But it's in Tuscaloosa, so.
Godspeed. But yeah, so my AP first reaction, the voters actually did it right by having Oregon and Iowa round up the top five, both with big wins over ranked opponents. Just well done on their end. I do like the fact that both Texas A&M and Ohio State dropped. A&M didn't look good against Colorado. Ohio State just got flat out beat. Good that they dropped. No qualms there. My first qualm I do have is Notre Dame at 12. I do think UCLA should be ranked higher than them. I do think Virginia Tech should be ranked higher than them. I do think Coastal Carolina should be ranked higher than them. It's okay to struggle against Florida State on the road. It's all right. Monday night game, usually don't play on Mondays. It's totally normal. Toledo at home that you won because Toledo just kept on giving up pass interference. No.
Shout out to Jack Cohn though for like snapping his finger like back in place and then throwing the game-winning touchdown. Dude's a badass. I miss him.
No. Great dude. But that's just.
Was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
I wouldn't rank Iowa State. They just flat out didn't show up. They're just. I told you guys, Iowa State does this thing every year where they struggle against a mediocre FCS or G5 team. They lose to Iowa. They rally a few quick wins, then they lose again towards the end of the season, and they end up in the Alamo Bowl. And nobody wants to listen to me, but I told y'all about Iowa State. I told y'all that. But Oregon wasn't even expected to be in the Pac-12. They were a backup team that year, remember? Because Washington had COVID. So it's like, I'm not even going to praise them for doing that. And then finally, my only other thing, wouldn't rank North Carolina. Shout out to BYU. Shout out to Arkansas. You deserve to be ranked. Oh, yeah, Miami. Don't rank them. I mean, thank you for hitting. Thank you for winning because you helped me with my parlay. But you guys are flat out terrible. So,
shout out App State.
Hey, you know what? App State covered the +9. And for those that watch the No Context streams with me and Liam talking about our CF betting, we both were huge on App State to cover their 9-point or 8.5 underdog line against Miami. They covered. I thought that line was disrespectful. But so in terms of my overall reaction, guys, I'm a Wisconsin guy, heart and heart. All right. And it does kill me. I do die a little bit inside when I have to say this, but we really have to give massive props to Iowa. I went into the season thinking that Iowa was going to be one of the more underrated teams going into the season. Through the first two games, they've done nothing but prove me right in that aspect. They absolutely dominated Indiana 34-6. You go out and you beat one of the most hyped teams. Let's be honest, one of the most overhyped teams going into the season in Iowa State in Ames.
Amen.
And you had Ashton Kutcher go crazy in front of all the Cyclone fans, which is awesome. Huge shout out to Ashton Kutcher. I'm a huge That 70s Show fan, and he will forever be one of my favorite actors. So I will give massive credit to that. It's really good to see Iowa up there. They're the highest rated. They're the highest ranked Big Ten team. They're ahead of Ohio State. They're ahead of Wisconsin. They're ahead of Penn State, Michigan. I don't know what's Michigan is not really shocking, but when you just consider like brand name and in terms of what they do in terms of recruiting, it is a little shocking to see Iowa that high. So massive credit to Iowa, massive credit to Tyler Goodson, the way that he runs the ball. They got a really good team up in Iowa. I expect them to play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game later in the season. Yeah, good for them. To see Texas A&M drop a little bit, I was actually agreeing with it. For those that know me know that I was big on the Texas A&M train. I was watching the Texas A&M Colorado game. That was the main game I was focusing on around that 2:30 to 5:30 spot. Guys, Texas A&M they were just not good. I just hate to put it that way. They were just not that good against Colorado. Maybe it was the altitude. But once Haynes King, once he injured his ankle, he's going to be out for the next month. It looks like the whole A&M offense just died. And based on what I saw from Zach Calzada, I don't think he's that good. I don't think he was not one of my guys going into this season to replace Kellen Mond. He didn't even complete 50% of his passes, but I will give him massive credit though he did throw the game winner to Isaiah Spiller. One of my favorite guys in college football. So it's great to see him get it. Uh, and guys, why the hell is Iowa State still ranked?
Agreed, man.
I just
Agreed.
I don't get it. They barely scraped by Northern Iowa. You get killed by your in-state rivals, Iowa. You literally expect me to believe that of the 2 weeks, though technically 3 weeks, if you consider week 0, the 3 weeks that we have had of college football, and you mean to tell me that Iowa State is still a top 15 team in the country? No.
I mean, they
Do
lost to a
I?
top 10 team, so I think you gotta. I mean, I get it,
They got
but they
worked.
lost to a top 10 team, so I think
They
anytime you
got
lose to a top 10
worked.
team,
They barely beat an FCS team. They barely beat an FCS team. Northern Iowa. You should not be able to beat the northern version of your college. I mean that's just it. Like, are they, if you literally were, I don't like, okay, are we ranking our top 25s by who do we truly believe are the best teams right now, or are we ranking them based on, okay, we're sure that number 1 could be number 2, we're sure that number 2 could be number 3? I just don't know how in either organization that I could view Iowa State as a top 15 team. They're just not getting the offense rolling. Brock Purdy's not playing good right now. I just do not trust this Iowa State team right now anymore. uh and I'm kind of with Doug on this one. Just stop ranking Miami. Just stop. All right. I just cannot believe it anymore. Uh Arkansas, we'll just see how good Arkansas is. I mean, is Arkansas really that good? I really like Traylon Burks, the wide receiver, a lot. Like Brian said about Pittman, he's a really fun player to watch. Is Arkansas that good, or is Texas just so terrible that they can make mediocre teams look elite, look like a playoff game for one night out of the year? I mean, they did it with Maryland, so we'll see.
Whoa, whoa,
Uh,
whoa, 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 whoa. Only I can take shots at my alma mater.
I thought you referred to them as just the place that you got your degree from. You never
Yeah,
refer to them
nah.
by you never refer to them by name.
Yeah, exactly. I never said their name. I just said my alma mater. So I still never said their name.
Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go on to the big game of the weekend. Let's be honest what it is. Oregon goes to Ohio State, going as a 2-touchdown favorite, and they beat the Buckeyes in Columbus. And they put a rubber ducky in midfield, and we saw the Oregon Duck on the side of the field, literally cracking nuts with a nutcracker next to him. Guys, I'm gonna go ahead and let Emily lead this one. Instant reaction to Oregon. Should we be concerned about Ohio State? Just overall takeaways from this game.
Overall, I hope it's not a fluke. Like, I hope they continue with their success, and I'm glad that they beat Ohio State. Like, I'm glad Oregon's getting recognition again. If I'm being honest, I don't have a lot of details on it because I was at the Ole Miss game, so I didn't get to watch it. But I mean, I've watched highlights and I've seen that, and I think it's a really big win for Oregon, and I'm glad that they were able to do it on an away game. So.
yeah, I think it's what I really liked about that game was that a lot of questions, and even we talked about it on our podcast. We talked about the Oregon's defense without being with they didn't have Kayvon Thibodeau. We thought they were going to struggle. We thought they weren't going to be very good. We thought that Ohio State was going to run and CJ Stroud was going to pass all over them. And they came out, with intensity. They came out with that fire, and they beat up on Ohio State, on their offense. And for a while there, I mean, they think they went up, what was it, 21-7 or something like that? They were up by 2
It
touchdowns, I
was
think.
usually a 2-touchdown lead
Yeah, it
for
was
most of the game.
exactly. Yeah, they were playing keep away. They were chasing them out, throughout the game with the 2-touchdown lead, and then towards the end, it got a little bit close. And again, that Ohio defense that we were criticizing came up with 2 big stops. They had that interception. They had that fourth down stop, and it was great to see. I love seeing that. When there's questions about something, people come in with questions about a certain player, certain side of the ball, offense, defense, special teams, anything, and then all of a sudden they come out and they play the out of their minds, and I'm sure they saw and they heard all the criticism, and good for them. I'm really happy Oregon won. I can't stand Ohio State. Ohio State is the team I hate the most. That's not in the SEC. I hope they lose every game for the rest of their existence, but I'm glad Oregon won. I want to see them succeed. I think they're probably the best team in the Pac-12 right now. Obviously, they're the best team in the Pac-12 right now. And can we talk about the state of the Big Ten? I mean, I think Ohio State's going to be okay. But other than that, I mean, who's really, the leader in the clubhouse at the Big Ten. Iowa State lost. Penn State isn't looking that good. Iowa, I mean, is that their only hope to make the playoff? Is Iowa? I mean,
well, I mean, Ohio State can still make it if they run the table.
Yeah,
if they're dominant. I mean, the Big Ten is not a bad conference. Look, this is just the way I personally view it. After the Wisconsin Penn State game, I kind of wanted to leave with. I wanted to leave my house and go drown in the San Jacinto River, to go ahead and just be blunt with you, just because that game made me that insane. But at the same time, it was still a 0-0 game at halftime. Wisconsin's defense was still good. I'm just going to see how they pull up against Notre Dame in 2 weeks now. How are they going to pull up against Army, who had the best defense in FBS last season? And just how can they handle against the likes of Iowa? Wisconsin, Iowa, they do play later in the year. I think that game is going to say a lot about both teams in terms of how good they both really are. I know we love to throw knee-jerk reactions after week 2, but it's still 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah. For all we know, Michigan can still be the real deal. They can prove everybody wrong and be the real deal. I don't think that's the case.
It's Michigan.
I just said I don't count on it. All right. But we'll still see. We'll see what Penn State does against Auburn next weekend, which is probably going to be the game of the weekend. We'll see how Wisconsin does against Iowa. We'll see, that's kind of essentially it, And for all we know, look, I don't have faith in Michigan State, but maybe Mel Tucker could pull something out of the hat with that team. Maybe go. I don't want to sound ridiculous, because I really do not have a whole lot of faith. But Kenneth Walker is a great running back. As terms of the Big Ten goes, I mean, it's going to be a bloodbath this year. I mean, is it just so? Our team's just so good. The fact that they're just going to beat each other up. I mean, we'll just see how it goes. I'm not saying that the conference is hopeless. I firmly do not believe that. If anything, I just think there's still a lot of talent there that a whole lot of teams just had to play really tough games really early, so we'll just see how it goes.
Am I wrong? I haven't looked at the schedule, but is Michigan Ohio State this weekend or no?
Michigan State, Michigan,
Ohio State.
Michigan
State.
That's
always the last game. That's Thanksgiving weekend always.
That's right. Yeah.
And Michigan State, they play who does Michigan State? Let me see who Michigan State.
I know they play Miami next week. I'm not
sure. So we'll see. So you know what? Look, I know what you said about Miami, but if Michigan State goes in there and dominates Miami, like how Miami, even though they barely beat App State this past weekend, I mean, if Michigan State puts up a good performance against Miami, maybe we'll learn something about Michigan State. We'll see. I think there's still some good games to play in the Big Ten. I think whenever you look at all the conferences and you literally have to ask yourself, okay, which one do we think we need more time to figure out? I do think it's the Big Ten. I think with the SEC, we already know what we're getting. Okay, we know who Alabama is. We know who Georgia is at this point. If anything, we just need to see, can Ole Miss play average defense? That's the thing with Ole Miss. If they just play average defense, they can. I like how Emily's reacting right now.
Same thing with UF.
Look, okay. We have not had a good defense since 2014. The Landshark defense, not a thing. Haven't had a defense. It's fun. It's fun. Miami Times will screw us over. It's all
Lane
good.
Kiffin doesn't believe in defense. It's a lane train, baby. It's all offense, all full steam ahead.
Accurate. I was 54 the other night.
I will say this. I am losing patience with Texas A&M because they had a really slow start against Kent State. And they did not look good against Colorado. Like I said, I do not trust Zach Calzada as much as I trust Haynes Kane, but shout out Connor Weigman, Bridgeland High School quarterback, number 1 pocket passer in the country. He's going to Texas A&M. He's going to be the best quarterback that's ever graced Texas A&M, and he's going to be the best quarterback that Jimbo Fisher's ever coached. I'm calling it now. I really do believe he's that good.
Over Johnny Manziel.
All right. Lay off the Cliff.
No, I think he is fantastic.
You said the best quarterback Jimbo's ever coached. Jimbo
better than Jameis.
Lay off the crack pipe. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it.
All right. No. So speaking of Jimbo and Jameis, let's go over to where they spent some time together. Tallahassee, guys. Florida State.
Whoa.
What the hell? What?
Before we do, now I gotta make a statement here to the.
Oh, that's faithful. Right. I think he's got a little well-written note that he has to write to the University of Oregon, of Eugene, Oregon, to the entire football program, to Mario Cristobal, to CJ Verdell and all that.
Yeah.
Doug, let's hear it. Let's hear it, man. Let's hear it.
So, Oregon faithful, I'd like to apologize. I said Ohio State would win easily. I said the backups would be in by the start of the fourth quarter. I said you really shouldn't even get off the bus. I am sorry for how wrong I was. CJ Verdell is the truth. I took your injuries too seriously. I overestimated Ohio State Buckeyes. I generally still do think that you guys will not win the Pac-12. I think you will lose at UCLA. I do think that there will be another upset at your hands. I do think you also might lose at Salt Lake City. But I was wrong last week. And for that, I apologize.
How many more apology letters do you have to prepare for just in case? Because I literally just kind of like 3 right now.
Let's see. I gotta.
You said UCLA. You said the Pac-12. You said Salt Lake City. You said
UCLA.
I already said UCLA, so we already got 3 right there.
Yeah, so that's 3. Yeah, that's 3.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. So start drafting. All right, get on your Microsoft Word after this is over and start drafting just in case.
No, because all 3 are going to hit. Because you know why? I have a great accuracy percentage. I was just really off on that one.
Wasn't accurate on this one. So let's go ahead and let's get to that Tallahassee like I was talking about. So I know this is an overreaction. All right, but I saw something online. I think it was like an FSU writer, and he said that Florida State could go 0-12 this season, and they would not be able to afford Mike Norvell's buyout. Guys, I think it's way too early to start talking about a Mike Norvell contract buyout. Jacksonville State lost the way that they the way that they lost to Jacksonville State. Guys, one of the wide receivers for Florida State literally just straight up said that all they did was run 4 verticals like they did on Madden, and they still won the game. How do we view Florida State? After Mackenzie Milton came back against Florida State, we were thinking, okay, you know what, they could be at least a bowl eligible team this season. No, I don't even think we're gonna. I don't even feel like we're gonna even touch that grace this year. So is it time to hit the panic button in Tallahassee? Doug, let's hit with you, the king of overreactions. Let's hear it.
That panic button's been hit since Jimbo's last year. Florida State is a finished institution right now. They should have just gave Jimbo what he wanted instead you got an apathetic Jimbo who left for A&M, got stuck with Willie Taggart who was over his head, and you got Mike Norvell who, while has cleaned up some of the issues that were in Tallahassee beforehand, not necessarily the fault of Taggart's, it's just not working. It's not working. Notre Dame you can excuse. They're a ranked team who still stinks, by the way, but they're ranked. So you can excuse that. Jacksonville stay on 4 verts. The game plan apparently was because they had 1 timeout, 6 seconds, they can get a timeout with like 3, 2, 1 second left, and Jacksonville State can kick a field goal. But you think about it. For the ball to get that far, 6 seconds would be up. So the only play was to force him out of bounds or just tackle him. Like play prevent, because you'd keep the play in front of you. But nope. Decided to run stupid ass package. So yeah, Florida State's panic button. Do not. I don't even know what to say about that program. It's bad. Like I would say Florida A&M's the best program in Tallahassee. That, and I'm dead serious too. Wake is difficult. Wake's a solid school. I mean, I'm looking at the rest of their schedule. Louisville stinks. Syracuse stinks. So that's 2. UNC is a mixed bag. So they could be potentially 3-2. They got UMass, easy win because UMass is awful. Clemson, bloodbath. UF is a loss. Like, it's just, I don't even know what to say about Florida State. Just shut down the program. Just shut it down. Try again next year.
It's really sad because, you know, we were riding this Mackenzie Milton and this train, and we were talking so positively for Florida State last week. And I was excited for them. I kind of wanted to see what they were going to do, and I wanted to see Mackenzie Milton succeed. And then they kind of say, "Hold on a minute, like, are you forgetting who I am?" And they come out against Jacksonville State and do what they did. It's really unfortunate. It kind of sucks the wind out of the sails with the Mackenzie Milton story. It's still a great story, don't get me wrong, but it just kind of, it's unfortunate that it sucks. But it's Florida State. They haven't been anything since Jameis Winston had that fumble against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. It's ever this since that moment hit the airwaves. It hasn't been pretty for Florida State. So yeah, it's really
Quick
sucks for them.
disclaimer there. They did win an Orange Bowl after the fact to beat Jim Harbaugh's Michigan, but they also did lose to Houston in the Peach Bowl, I believe. So not smooth sailing either way, but quick disclaimer.
They did win, but it's not like they were, first of all, it's against Jim Harbaugh, so it's not like
Good point.
it's not like it's a marquee win, but it just hasn't been the prettiest of tenures since then. So we'll see what happens. I think they can rally. I think they can win some games. I do believe that they're more talented than they have been recently, and I think that it happens. We've seen teams lose to FCS teams and G5 teams every year. We see that. So we saw Washington lose to Montana. We see these things happen. It sucks because it's Florida State, so they're looked under a microscope just because they've been so bad. But it happens, and I think I agree with Doug. I think they'll rally. I think they'll win some games. I think they'll make a bowl. Maybe they'll finish, 7 wins, 8 wins, maybe. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. I know they'll probably lose to Clemson. They'll lose to a lot of other teams, but we'll see what happens.
8 wins is not happening because they're 0-2 and they still face Clemson, Miami, and Florida.
I mean, Miami's not. We've seen what Miami is like. They could lose to Florida State.
All right, then North Carolina. Like I said, I'm not high on any of these games, but they face multiple ranked. They have 4 ranked teams left on their schedule, so
I don't know. We'll see. I didn't say they're going to win 8 games. I said they could win 8 games.
Yeah,
no, they can't.
No, they really can't. No, let's just dead it right here.
All right, Emily. Let's get your thoughts on it real quick. Shut down the Seminole program, or what do we do here?
I mean, at this point, they're not going to win 8 games. First off, second off, they're not going to be at that caliber, which I hate for Mackenzie Milton, because for him to make that recovery and come out, but I don't think it's going to be the same. So I'm not saying shut down the program, but I'm not saying have a lot of hope in it.
You know what? We talk about the Jameis Winston debacle versus Oregon. I don't even know what you want to call that. It's more. Like fumble is not a brutal enough term to describe whatever that was.
He ate too much popcorn.
He ate too many crab legs. That's what happened. But we could. I am more than happy to sit here all day and talk about that glorious Peach Bowl of the 2015 season against Houston. That was one of the best days of my life. But beside the point here is, I don't have any faith in Florida State. I just don't know what Florida State could do. I mean, what are you going to do? Buy out Norvell at this point? I really don't know what. It's just,
they don't have a choice.
It's just such an expensive decision to make. You dug your own grave. Just bury yourself in it at this point. I have no faith in Florida State as a program going into the future. We'll see. So on to the next part of the list. We're gonna make this one quick. I think we're just gonna go each of what we saw, what we watched. I believe Emily was at the Ole Miss games because I know she sent us pic from when she was at the Grove. She could tell us about that tailgate experience and how she believes it's the greatest college town in America. I'm going to Madison later this year, so I'll be the judge of that. Although one of my bosses at work did tell me to go to Oxford at some point and told me that he would literally give me the day off to do so. So we'll see how that goes. Let's go with Doug. Just give us a quick overview, what you saw, just how you spent your college football Saturday.
Yeah, no, definitely. Started off, because I had 2 screens. So I had my TV screen and my laptop screen. So first game, I was watching Ohio State, Oregon on the big screen. I was watching Pitt and Tennessee on the other one. That was probably the first two. Kenny Pickett, that's my guy. I had faith in Pitt just keeping Tennessee out the end zone, which was true because Joe Milton was Captain Overthrow. Missed like 4 easy touchdowns because he could not hit the broadside of a barn. Once Hendon Hooker took a charge, Tennessee looked a lot better offensively, but again, he still wasn't really special either. I mentioned earlier I was wrong on Oregon, Ohio State. Moving forward, had the UGA game on my TV. I had the was it Texas A&M, Colorado on my laptop. Just pathetic showing. Colorado should have put that game away. It's just overall, it's just shambolic. I don't know what was going on there with Colorado. Sal for Texas A&M again can hit a broadside of the barn, but when it mattered most, Texas A&M pulled it out. Yeah, so then pretty much the whole day I was rotating. I watched the school I got my degree from beat Howard. I watched one of my parlays go up in flames as Arkansas just beat Texas down like disgracefully bad. Watched Miami struggle with App State. So I watched pretty much everything, even Oklahoma State also I watched because for some reason Oklahoma State was in a dogfight with them. Made no sense. Even the Toledo, Notre Dame, I watched everything but Hawaii and Oregon State, and that's because I was tired. I could not stay up that long. Like I am beat. Yeah, but other than that, I was watching pretty much everything.
So it's so weird. Like me as a college football fan, I'm like a Georgia fan first. So with the Georgia games on, I don't watch anything else other than the Georgia game. So during that 4 hours or 3.5 hours, I didn't see anything else but the Georgia game. I did watch Ohio State and Michigan. Kind of was flipping through the early games, but I did see Ohio State, Michigan, and then as soon as Georgia started, I saw that. And I just want to say one thing: ESPN just is horrific. I'm pretty sure nobody else paid attention to that, but so they had the Georgia UAB game scheduled on ESPN2. What game was on that went late? I think it was it Auburn?
ESPN2. No, Auburn played later. ESPN2. No, because Tennessee and Pitt was ESPN. ESPN2 was it East Carolina, South Carolina?
Yeah, I think it was East Carolina, South Carolina. So East Carolina and South Carolina were on ESPN2, and they were scheduled to be UAB in Georgia. So the East Carolina that game went a little bit late, and then it ended right before that kickoff was supposed to happen. So you would think, all right, this game's done. Let's kick it over to Georgia and UAB like they were supposed to because it's scheduled. No, they send it to Tennessee and Pitt, who's already on ESPN, and there's 8 minutes left in that game. And I say, oh, thank you for watching East Carolina and South Carolina. You're going to catch the rest of the Tennessee game. If you're trying to watch Georgia, check it out on the ESPN app. Like, okay, I mean, that's not this game. The schedule is UAB Georgia. That's the game that's scheduled to be on ESPN2. The Tennessee game is already on ESPN. For a while, they had the same game on both of their flagship stations. And then you go to the app, and it's not even on. It's saying that the program will begin soon, halfway through the first quarter. You missed the first touchdown and a half or something like that. And it was just frustrating. But to that point, seeing Stetson Bennett the fourth be just the greatest thing. He's the greatest quarterback in Georgia history. Give him the Heisman Trophy today. I'm so proud of him. I'm so happy for him. I'm gonna write a story about him because I think not a lot of people know his story, and everybody deserves to know his story. And Stetson Bennett the fourth, man, he is a Georgia legend for the rest of my life. I'll remember where I was the day that Stetson Bennett the fourth did what he did against UAB. Granted, it's UAB. Let's just say that UAB is not they're not a great program, but they're a pretty legit G5 program. They've won the Conference USA 2 out of the last 3 years. They're very, very good. They're not Arkansas State. They're not South Alabama. They're a very good program. And to see them just completely whip them and see what Stetson Bennett the fourth did against them was magical. And it kind of shows the state of Georgia's football because Georgia football, because the last few years under Kirby Smart, whenever they do play a G5 team or a lower ranked team or a team that you expect to demolish, it's very pound. They just pound the run. They run the ball up and down the field. They score maybe 28, 35 points. They win 35-0, and they just run out the clock. And it's a very boring game. But not Saturday. They literally the second play of the game is a 75-yard touchdown by the GOAT, Stetson Bennett. 2 plays later, a 90-yard touchdown pass. And then literally the very next play, the next play on offense is another 80-yard touchdown pass. I think Stetson Bennett was 5 for 5 for 246 yards and 4 touchdowns halfway through the second quarter. So it was just, it was fantastic. I know I shouldn't be glamorizing a game against UAB, but it was just fantastic. And I loved every minute of it. And that's honestly, everything else is irrelevant to me after watching that. I was on such a high after watching that. I don't ever remember what happened in college football after that. The last thing I remember watching is USC and Stanford, because I remember waking up from a nap and I thought it's midnight and I turn on the TV and they're in the first quarter. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I watched, and yeah, we saw USC be a dumpster fire, but that I needed to talk about Stetson Bennett because it's been on my mind since Saturday, and he deserves to be talked about, and he's not talked about enough. So that's my soapbox on that.
All right, my turn. Okay. So my weekend was, first off, phenomenal. The fact that the Grove is back finally after 2 years because of COVID. They didn't have it last year. Or 2 years now. Yeah, 2. Everybody was there. It is the number one tailgating spot, first off. Don't let them confuse you. Everybody was there. The Grove was packed. The Circle was packed. They now have put gates up. So when I sent y'all that video of Lane Kiffin and them doing the Walk of Champions, we now have gates instead of being like super close to everybody, which sucked, but I could see better, so that was cool. Lane Kiffin came out styling and profiling. Love it for him. And then our Heisman contender, Matt Corral, was all dressed up in his suit. Walking into the stadium was great. It was a full capacity, no mask mandate. Beautiful. Just being back in the vault was amazing. We put John Rice Plumlee, who is the backup quarterback for Matt Corral, we put him in as a slot wide receiver, and he got a lot of time in the fourth quarter, which we were very thankful for because we'll need him against Bama in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I think 3 weeks. But just the experience is back. Even after the game we won, there were still people in the Grove tailgating, hanging out, which is just great in general. And then the square is about a half mile from the stadium. So if you walk to that, everybody was there in full force. It was just great to be back, and it finally felt like college football was truly back in Oxford.
So Emily just got done talking about a great stadium experience. I unfortunately have to tell you about a terrible experience that I just went through. But before I get to that, so the 11 o'clock game, I was with some friends, and we were actually watching the Bayern Munich game, but I was also watching Oregon, Ohio State on my phone, and they also had it on TV afterwards next to it. Oregon, we already discussed it, flat out dominated against Ohio State. The defense was phenomenal without Justin Flo, they had it dominated without Kayvon Thibodeau and Justin Flo. Fantastic job by them. Watched a little bit of the Tulsa Oklahoma State game. I saw Tulsa winning. I was like, guys, what the hell is going on here? Oklahoma State still came back. They won it. Tulsa still covered. Good teams win. Great teams cover. Oklahoma State's not a great team. That's just blatant honesty about that. Went to a bar afterwards. Watched the Colorado Texas A&M game, guys. No, not A&M. All right, I'm sorry. I'm having serious concerns on A&M right now, and it hurts because I was running them so hard going into the season, and I just cannot anymore. Maybe they can prove me wrong. We'll give it a shot. Hopefully Minnesota has to taste the same medicine whenever they go up to Colorado this weekend, but we'll see. Saw Iowa completely dominate Iowa State. That was we already discussed that. And guys, after that, went to the one, the only Rice Stadium. That's right, the worst stadium to ever host a Super Bowl. And I can say that without ever having to step foot in Hard Rock Stadium or the Raymond James Stadium. I heard that's a pretty below average stadium as a stadium itself. Guys, Rice Stadium. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm just gonna read some excerpts from the article that I just wrote. Just got published maybe about 20 minutes ago. Um, I'm just gonna talk about my experience. There was actually some tailgating. I'm shocked. Okay, for a university that's primarily for rich nerds, there was a lot of tailgating going on at Rice Stadium. I was actually kind of shocked. But considering I was wearing my UH stuff, I think that's why they didn't offer me anything, but that's beside the point. Um, Guys, Rice Stadium, it has some serious concerns. And I'm not even saying that to diss Rice Stadium, but I'm saying this as wholeheartedly as possible. I go in and I get my ticket scanned, and next thing I know, I'm in the stadium. I think we can all agree that the most annoying thing that we have to go through whenever we go into stadiums is we essentially have to clear our pockets, take out phone, take out wallet, all that, and you have to walk through the scanner. Let's be honest, we all hate that process. But guys, after going to Rice Stadium, I realized we kind of need that. And why do I feel like we need that? Because I did not have to go through one of those things when I went through Rice Stadium. They literally just checked my ticket and they just let us in. And I'm kind of like, wait a minute. I could have had a knife. I could have had a weapon of some sort. And there was absolutely nothing they would have done that they did to stop me. I was like, this is real. I wasn't scared, but I was like, for the most part, I just did not like that feeling. I really did not like that feeling whatsoever. Granted, I don't think there's any Rice fan that's big enough that would, throw a temper tantrum if they lost, but that's beside the point. Guys, the stadium is hideous on the inside. It's concrete. It's boring. There's no color. And read the article, okay? I posted a picture. The bathroom entrances look like a brick wall. They look like the torture dungeon of an Eastern European prison, okay? And guys, I've seen pictures of Eastern European prisons, all right? They look exactly like it. They don't even have proper urinals in the men's restroom. They literally have you taking care of your business on a wall. I am not joking. That was one bad enough. And guys, they also have for the top seats of the level, like the top rows, the seats are wooden and they're chipped. They're not even real plastic seats that you're used to. They're wooden, rusted. There's probably termites on these seats. There's plenty of splinters on them. If somebody was to sit in those chairs and if the chair broke, it's not a sign to go to the gym. No, it's a sign to tell Rice Stadium to update your freaking seats. I don't think anybody around the 200-pound range would have stayed stable in those seats. I'm being dead serious here. And also, but I will say this, once I was able to move through all those terrible facets of the stadium and all that, I got to see Houston beat Rice 44-7, completely dominate the game. I saw Luke McCaffrey absolutely trash himself on that field, throwing 3 picks, including a game-ending pick 6. I'm happy about that. I am so happy about that. The fact that I was in this stadium, this terrible stadium for a terrible football program, and we emerged victorious in that fashion, and we won the Bayou Bucket. It was so beautiful. I was so happy. This is just like, it was just beautiful. It's like taking over terrible territory and you claim it as yours. Yeah, that's right. That's our place now. So after the game was over, I just went home. I was tired. I did see the end of part of the Michigan-Washington game, and I saw that Michigan was up by a head. And I was like,
Wait.
What?
You turned on that game
I
on
didn't even,
purpose.
I didn't even know what the score was when I got home.
Bro, Washington was playing me and you at receiver. There was no need to watch that game.
I just turned it on because it was the first thing that was on YouTube TV when I turned on the TV.
There's just buttons for a reason.
It was the first thing. It was the first channel that pulled up. Would you get off my back, man? Anyways, so if you would have let me finish, I would have just said that, okay, I saw that Michigan was up 24-3 at that point. So I was like, okay, well, this ain't even worth watching. So then I did watch part of the Jacksonville State, Florida State game, although I didn't even stick around for the final play, which kind of sucks. I did watch part of the Stanford USC game, and I was like, yeah, all right, there you go. Yep, Clay Helton's going to get fired eventually. Didn't actually make that prediction, but I was close enough. So yeah, I mean, as far as the highlight of my day, went to a terrible stadium but saw a glorious win. And truthfully, if the stadium was any worse, that would have been one of the worst days of my life. But it was kind of beautiful to see a stadium so terrible, so old. And like I said, I don't even think I'm exaggerating when I say this. I do not think that stadium's been renovated since the Cold War. And I feel like I'm being serious on that. It looks dirty from the inside and the outside. How was I not attacked by rats? Anyways, so we're gonna try and just like hurry up and get this wrapped up a little bit here. Fraud alerts. We kind of did mention it a little bit in terms of in our top 25s and our reaction to the AP top 25. But let's go ahead and let's just do a quick overview in terms of who do we feel like is on serious fraud alert. Emily, let's start over to you.
Okay, first off, just being honest, I hate Notre Dame. I don't want them to be on there at all. I think they're overrated. That's my hot take for that. But yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Let's just leave it at that. Can't stand them.
I think I give a little bit more love to Notre Dame, which is weird because I usually don't. I think they always end up showing themselves at the end. They always lose to the best team they play anyway. So, but you know, as far as frauds go, I mean, I guess Iowa State obviously is a fraud. I think Texas A&M. I don't know. I'm a little iffy on them. I don't think that they're amazing. I don't think they're a top 10 team. And I don't think they will be. I mean, they still have to play Ole Miss. They still have to play Alabama. They still have to play, pretty much the rest of the SEC East. So SEC West. I mean, so we'll see what happens. We'll see. I don't know. I don't really have a lot of frauds, at least not yet. I still think we're a little bit early. We'll still have to see what Michigan's about. We still have to see what Auburn's about. We still have to see. I think UCLA has shown up to be very good. I think we can kind of agree that they're going to be a very good team. I think we can all agree that Ole Miss is a very good team. Penn State, I'm a little iffy on Penn State. They do have a fraud. I have a fraud alert on them. I think that they're not going to be. I have to see how they're going to be like moving forward against better teams. But I don't know if I'm sold on Penn State yet. I really don't. I think I still have a bad taste in my mouth from that game against Wisconsin. But other than that, we'll see what happens.
Fraud alerts. Let me start off with the Hokies in Blacksburg. North Carolina's not good. I picked them as my overrated team to begin with for the season. I still do think that Fuente does get fired at the end of the season. They play West Virginia team that's not necessarily good because they lost to the school I got my degree from. So, but again, it's a Power 5 team that's fairly decent. Knowing Virginia Tech's history, they'll lose this week. They'll beat Richmond. They'll beat Notre Dame. End up losing 2 out of 3 from Pitt, Syracuse, and Georgia Tech. But yeah, I'm not buying Virginia Tech. And then another one that I have here would be, I mean, Michigan's always on fraud alert. I can't really do that to them. I mean, because nobody actually thinks of mildly. But I was like, Ole Miss, I am a fraud alert, but that's not because of their offense. Don't get me wrong. No. If Ole Miss actually recruited FBS players on defense, then they wouldn't be on my fraud alert. But yeah, that's the thing.
That's valid. We have no defense. I'll give you that one.
Okay, yeah, that's the thing. Like that's what I said in season preview. Like if their defense was actually FBS level, then they'd be a great team. But like, I mean, they played a Louisville team that couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything in terms of actually play the game of football. I want to see Ole Miss against actual FBS competition, like Power 5 competition. They do well there. I'll take them on fraud alert. That's just me just covering my bases. Like I said, I always thought their offense was amazing. It's defense.
We have none. we don't recruit a defense ever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right, so in terms of my fraud alert, it's so easy. Iowa State, and to be honest with you, they shouldn't even be on fraud alert because they're, as far as I'm concerned, they're already a fraud in my opinion. They shouldn't even be ranked. They were not ranked in my top 25. I'm gonna stand by that wholeheartedly. You've had 2 weeks to prove that you're a top 25 team, and you haven't even come close to it. That's essentially it. I mean, they should not be 14. You cannot tell me that there are only 13 teams better than them in all of college football. I will absolutely refuse to believe it. I'm not sold on North Carolina. You still lose your top 3 wide receivers, and to me, they still have not proven that they can replace those 3 wide receivers, and they lost their leading rusher from last year. Notre Dame, I feel like with Notre Dame, I feel like it's a matter of clock is ticking. Clock is ticking for Notre Dame. They've returned only 3 offensive starters from last season. Their most experienced starter in their offense is Jack Cohn, a transfer. He's shown to me, I think he is the best player on that offense for me, in my honest opinion. And when your best player on your offense is a transfer, to me, that doesn't exactly spell good news for me. You got Wisconsin in 2 weeks. You got Cincinnati the week after. You got to go to Blacksburg the week after that. That's two non-home games because that Wisconsin game is in Chicago, so it's technically neutral. But that's 2 non-home games in 3 weeks, all of them against ranked opponents. You cannot convince me that they're going to go 3-0 in that stretch. I refuse to believe it. We'll see what they do against North Carolina. I just said that I'm not a believer in North Carolina. And that's kind of essentially, I just think that stretch for them is just really difficult. I just do not believe that they're going to pull it out. You lose 2 games. As far as I'm concerned, if Notre Dame loses 1 game, I don't even think they should be in the playoff picture, even if they play the other 11 games perfectly. I just don't think they're that good of a team. And I'm sorry because I'm a huge Jack Cohn guy, but I just don't think they're that good. And Arkansas, we'll just see. Okay, we'll just see. Was this win against Texas was it just a feel-good story? This is kind of essentially it. Is Texas just so bad that any average team can make them look terrible and make themselves look like a playoff contender? We'll just see. Am I putting Arkansas on fraud alert? No. But it's just one of those, time will tell. And then to essentially finish out the show, we're just going to go with our biggest sleepers / risers, basically teams that we believe that maybe are not getting the credit that they deserve. And maybe you should be talked about more. I'm going to go ahead and just start off with that. I am going to say Ole Miss. Now, I am not expecting Ole Miss to win the SEC West. I'm not expecting that whatsoever. But as far as I'm concerned, if you beat Texas A&M, you're finishing second in the SEC West.
Ooh.
And consider that, put that as a division title as far as I'm concerned, because that's about as good as it's going to get. You got Alabama in about 2-3 weeks now. You got Arkansas the week after. As far as I'm concerned, you should be okay for the next couple of weeks. I think they'll beat Tennessee. I'm positive they'll beat LSU. Depending on what we see from Arkansas the week after, I think they can beat Auburn. I'm sorry. Depending how Auburn does against Penn State is what I meant to say. We'll see how good Auburn is. Are they still going to be that ranked team by their matchup in late October? They still got Liberty. Are we going to consider that the Hugh Freeze Bowl? I mean,
I'm not acknowledging that institution.
Hotty toddy, baby.
I cannot wait.
And then Texas A&M. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, yeah, they're going to lose to Alabama, but that's no shame whatsoever. All right. I feel like 129 teams, you put them up against Alabama, you take the loss. I don't care. But if you can beat A&M, beat Arkansas, beat Liberty, you should finish. I mean, I know Liberty's not a conference team, but you should essentially see yourself finish second in the SEC West. And you go 9-3. Maybe we'll even see a New Year's Six bowl. So I like Mississippi. Can they just play at least a somewhat below average defense? You don't even have to play average, just somewhat below average, and then you should be able to outscore essentially everybody on your schedule. And I
Ole
already saw.
Miss is going 11-1 with their only loss to Alabama.
I wouldn't hate it. I really wouldn't. Also, Iowa. I really like this Iowa team a lot. I just feel like they have. I think they can control the time of possession and the line of scrimmage about as well as anybody else in the country, especially in the Big Ten. It's exciting to see what Iowa can do. And once they play Wisconsin on October 30th, we're going to learn a lot about how good this Iowa team can be. Because, like I said, I don't even think we've seen the full potential that we saw in Wisconsin's offense, despite how horrible it was against Penn State. But they were able to pick up the pieces a little bit against Eastern Michigan. They got a bye week. I think if Wisconsin plays well against Notre Dame, I think it's going to come down to that October 30th matchup between Wisconsin and Iowa in terms of who's going to play Ohio State, assumingly in that Big Ten title game in late November. So, Emily, let's go over to you. Your sleepers / risers so far for the season.
So far for risers for Arkansas, I'm really excited that they're doing so well this year. For one, just Arkansas to Texas, just a big welcome to the SEC, but I know it goes deeper than that for them, for their matchup. Just North Carolina, no. I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling about them, and I don't think they should be as acknowledged for that. But that's all I got really right now.
I guess for me, a riser, I think I've been talking about it all podcast, Arkansas, Ole Miss. I really like what both of those teams are doing. I don't know. I think Ole Miss can probably carry it longer than Arkansas can. They can probably be better. And like I said, I think they'll go 11-1. I still think, Virginia Tech, we've seen Virginia Tech, they're slowly kind of creeping up. They're found themselves in the top 15 in 2 weeks. So, they gain another 4 spots this week. So I'm interested to see how they continue there. See how they look. Obviously, they got a lot of games to play in the ACC. So we'll definitely see what happens there. But yeah, and another team too is that I'm really, it's not a sexy pick, but Oregon. Oregon is they've gained 8 spots this week in the AP top 25, and they beat Ohio State. I'm interested to see how far can they go with this? Can they keep up this performance without Kayvon Thibodeau with this defense? And if eventually does he come back and how is that going to go? So I'm interested to see those teams for sure. And it's still very early. It's very early in the year. We don't really know who exactly. There's a lot of game football to be played. We don't know who exactly is who yet. I think it's Alabama, Georgia, and they could. I think you can fairly say they've separated themselves. From the rest of the pack. Obviously, Georgia has the biggest win you can say so far this year, as far as anybody in the top 25 goes. But there's a lot of football left to be played. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and to finish off, I got 2 sleepers. One team's not even ranked. I am going with the University of Kentucky. Kentucky's their offense looks pretty good. Like I mentioned during the pod last week, Missouri Kentucky's going to be a game to watch, and it turned out to be a game to watch. Chris Rodriguez, Wandale Robinson, Will Levis, like that whole offense is humming under Liam Cohen. Great hire. Like Stoops has been able to rejuvenate that program. I don't think that they'll be Georgia, but second in SEC East is up for grabs depending on whether Florida starts Emory or whether they start Anthony Richardson. If they start Richardson, most likely Florida will be second. But if they don't start Richardson and Emory gets a bulk of those pass attempts in play, then Kentucky has an actual chance of finishing higher than Florida. And then in terms of more so teams that are ranked, Arizona State. I do think that the Pac-12 South is still pretty open. Even though UCLA is still probably the favorite, as they should be, I do think Arizona State is coming along pretty nicely, coming in under the radar. Depending on what happens with the assistants that were suspended, to be honest, I have to keep up with that story more. If everything goes to plan, I can see them playing for the Pac-12 title. Especially since my USC pick has gone out the window with the firing and the loss to Stanford last week. So Arizona State and Kentucky for me.
So I think that's everybody. Everybody's gone, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, cool. So guys, we have officially reached the end of the show. Anybody want to say any last final words before we officially close this out?
I have 2 words to say. Hottie toddy, baby. Oh, that's 3 words. That's
Damn
3
right.
words. It's still look, Georgia's still by far my favorite team, and it always will be. And I'll never cheer for Ole Miss over Georgia, but I'm pulling for Ole Miss this year. Hottie toddy for sure.
I'm very
Guys,
excited for that. Thank you.
You guys, UH is back. We beat Rice, but as far as I'm concerned, we're back. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go all the way down to the AAC title game. Y'all just wait and see. It's gonna happen. We're gonna beat SMU also on October 30th. We're back. Who's back? Dana Holgerson's gonna win Coach of the Year. Guys, we're up. We're flying high. All right.
Yeah, my last word is that the 3:30 slate, actually the slate for Fox for college football next week is actually genuinely terrible. If you only have Fox in your household, go spend time with your family. Do not watch Nebraska, Oklahoma. Do not watch USC, Washington State. It is genuinely going to be eye cancer. Do not watch. Find a stream. Find something.
But what I will say is go watch Minnesota at Colorado and go see the Gophers suffer with that high altitude in Boulder.
Yeah. Watch that.
All right, cool, guys. I think that's it. Thank y'all so much. Thank you guys if you made it this far listening. We greatly appreciate it. And we will see you next time on Thursday morning for a very special episode of the Transfer Portal Podcast presented by No Context CFB. Thank you and good night.